The Buddha once reminded us that true peace is not something we stumble upon in the outside world. It is a flame already burning within our own hearts. Yet how often do we forget this? There are days when the world feels unbearably heavy, when our thoughts grow restless and our chest tightens as though carrying a weight that no one else can see. In those moments, the quiet question arises: will this ache ever leave me? If you've ever felt that way, know this: you are not broken and you are not alone. Every human life brushes against sorrow. Even the awakened ones, long before they discovered freedom, sat with their own storms of grief and confusion. But the wisdom of the Dharma does not ask us to turn away or to bury our sadness. It invites us to sit beside it, to breathe with it, and to understand its message. In doing so, pain is no longer a punishment, it becomes a teacher. A teacher that slowly shapes our hearts into compassion, our minds into clarity, and our spirit into peace. In this journey together, we will explore timeless Buddhist teachings that can guide you through life's darker valleys. These lessons are not quick cures or temporary escapes. They are ancient truths, carried through centuries, waiting to steady you when everything else feels uncertain. Think of them as a gentle lantern in the night, offering light, warmth, and the reminder that you already carry the seeds of peace within you. Lesson 1. Suffering is not a curse. It is a companion on the path. Many people grow up believing that pain is proof that life has gone wrong. We think sadness means we failed, that anxiety means we're weak, that loss means the universe has turned against us. But the Dharma teaches something radically different. Suffering is not a punishment. It is a mirror, showing us where we are still clinging, where we have yet to see clearly. The Buddha's very first teaching, the first noble truth, begins not with a promise of endless joy, but with a simple acknowledgement: there is suffering. He did not speak this to discourage us, but to invite us into honesty. Pain is not a mistake in the journey. It is part of the journey. It is not a detour, it is the very road we walk upon. When you begin to understand this, a quiet shift takes place inside you. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start seeing, this too is part of being human. You stop measuring your sadness against the curated smiles of others. Instead, you see your tears as proof that your heart is still alive, still tender, still capable of deep love. In Buddhism, suffering is not something to run from, it is something to sit beside. Not with judgment, not with resistance, but with curiosity. Ask yourself gently, what is this pain trying to teach me? Perhaps it is showing you the grip of attachment, how tightly you hold onto what is already slipping away. Perhaps it is pointing toward a wound in your heart that longs for your compassion. Perhaps it is whispering the truth of impermanence, that everything, even sorrow, eventually passes like clouds drifting across the sky. There is a strange wisdom hidden inside suffering. It strips away what is false, the masks we wear, the illusions we chase, the fragile expectations we cling to. And though that stripping feels harsh, it clears a space where something more authentic can grow. The deeper your suffering, the deeper your potential to awaken. In the pitch black night, even the faintest flame becomes visible. So too, in moments of despair, the first glimpse of clarity often shines. And here is the miracle. When you stop resisting pain, when you lean into it with trust, it begins to soften. The heaviness in your chest loosens. The endless questions begin to quiet. And from within, a steady strength begins to rise. Not the noisy kind of strength that shouts to the world, but the quiet strength that says, I can fall and still rise again. I can be wounded and still be whole. I can carry sorrow and still walk with grace. So, when suffering comes, do not see it as a curse. See it as a sacred invitation to slow down, to pay attention, to peel back the illusions you've been holding onto. With patience and compassion, pain becomes more than just something to endure. It becomes a doorway, not to despair, but to wisdom. Not to an ending, but to a new beginning. Remember, the story of your suffering is not where your journey ends. In truth, it may be where your real story begins. Lesson 2. Emotions are guests, not masters. When sadness settles in your heart, it can feel endless, as if the heaviness will never lift. Your chest feels weighed down, your mind shrouded in fog, and a quiet despair whispers that this is who you are now. But this is not the truth. The truth is far softer, far more merciful. The Buddha's teaching on anicca, impermanence, reminds us that nothing in this world, not joy, not sorrow, not even the most turbulent storm, lasts forever. Everything shifts, everything moves. Just as day turns to night and winter melts into spring, your emotions too are always in motion. Instead of picturing the sky, imagine yourself as a vast ocean. Some days your waters are calm, clear and still, reflecting the sunlight with ease. Other days, waves crash, tides rise, and tempests roll in. Yet beneath the surface, in the deep silence of the ocean floor, there is stillness that the storm can never touch. That depth is your true nature, steady, unshaken, and endlessly vast. The trouble begins when we mistake the waves for the whole ocean. We say, "I am depressed," instead of "I am feeling depression." We say, "I am anxious," instead of "I am experiencing anxiety." The difference may sound subtle, but it is the difference between drowning in the storm and watching it pass across the horizon. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness that notices them, the witness that remains when they come and when they go. Your sadness is not a verdict. Your anger is not a definition. Your fear is not a permanent mark. They are visitors, not permanent residents. The Buddha urged us not to cling to pleasant states or push away unpleasant ones, but to meet them all with equanimity, a balanced heart. This means allowing yourself to feel what you feel without labeling it as wrong, without racing to escape it, without pretending it doesn't exist. So when sorrow arises, don't slam the door on it, and don't hand it the keys to your house either. Instead, greet it like you would an unexpected guest. Offer it a seat, listen quietly, and wait. Guests never stay forever, and neither do emotions. When you begin to trust this truth, something shifts. The storm softens, the fear of sadness dissolves, and in its place, a quiet confidence begins to grow, the strength that whispers, "I can feel pain without being destroyed by it. I can walk through loneliness and still find my way back to peace." Like the seasons turning, like the river flowing, your inner weather is always changing. Even in the darkest winter, spring waits patiently beneath the surface. Even in the fiercest storm, there is always calm beyond the horizon. So the next time you are swept by a wave of grief, pause. Take a slow breath. Remember, this is a passing tide, not the whole ocean. Sit with it, watch it, let it teach you, but do not hold on to it. And when it drifts away, as it always will, you will find yourself clearer, lighter, and more deeply rooted in the stillness that has been within you all along. Lesson 3. Loneliness is not a curse. It is a sacred invitation. There is a kind of pain that doesn't shout, doesn't demand attention, yet weighs on the heart like a silent stone. This is loneliness. Not the simple fact of being physically alone, but the deeper ache of feeling unseen, unheard, and untouched by genuine understanding, even when surrounded by others. Most of us grow up believing that loneliness is proof something is wrong with us, that it's a punishment or flaw to be fixed. But the Dharma whispers a softer truth. Loneliness is not here to break you. It is here to guide you inward, to return you to yourself. The Buddha himself spent long stretches of time in solitude. He did not retreat into forests because he was abandoned, but because he understood the power of stillness. In that quiet, he did not experience exile. He touched the very heart of truth. What appears to be loneliness, when entered with awareness, is often the first step toward awakening. The discomfort we call loneliness is rarely about the absence of others. More often, it reflects the absence of a true relationship with ourselves. In modern life, we drown in noise, the buzzing of phones, the endless scroll of screens, the constant chatter of obligations. Rarely do we sit long enough to simply be with our own presence. And so, when the noise fades, we encounter a stranger within. That silence feels frightening, but it is not the enemy, it is the teacher. When you feel that quiet ache arise, resist the urge to immediately cover it with distractions. Instead, sit with it, breathe with it, ask, what is this feeling pointing toward? Perhaps it reveals how often you depend on others for your worth. Perhaps it reminds you of how far you've drifted from your own center. Or perhaps it is simply inviting you back to a love that does not waver the love already within you. This is where the practice of metta, loving kindness, becomes essential. Loneliness transforms when you offer compassion, not outwardly first, but inwardly to the tender parts of yourself you've neglected. Whisper softly to your own heart, I see you, I care for you, you are enough. These words, repeated with sincerity, begin to shift the weight of loneliness into the warmth of belonging. Over time, solitude stops feeling like an empty room. It becomes a sanctuary. Silence no longer feels like abandonment, but like a temple where the deepest truths live. You begin to discover that your own presence is not something to escape, but something to cherish. And here lies the secret. You have never truly been alone. Your breath has always been with you. Your awareness has never left you. The quiet watcher within, steady, compassionate, unshaken, has always been your closest companion. So when loneliness presses heavily on your chest, pause. Place your hand over your heart. Breathe deeply. Do not tell the loneliness to go away. Greet it with kindness and remind yourself, I am here. I am whole. I am home. Because loneliness, when embraced with awareness, reveals itself not as a curse, but as a mirror. A mirror reflecting the parts of yourself still waiting for love. And once you offer that love, patiently and unconditionally, loneliness dissolves into luminous stillness, a peace that no absence can take away, and no presence can fully give. A peace that is yours, wherever you are. There is a teaching story about a monk who carried a jar of water across the mountains. The farther he walked, the heavier it felt, until finally he reached a river and poured it out. When another monk asked what he learned, he smiled and said, I realized the weight I carried was never mine to hold forever. In the same way, your grief, your old expectations, your heavy memories, these are jars you've carried for too long. You are not asked to smash them on the ground. You are only asked to set them down, slowly, tenderly, with reverence for what they once meant. When you begin this practice of release, you discover what lies beyond the burden. Not emptiness, but spaciousness. Not loss, but freedom. Not detachment, but a deeper love, the kind that gives without fear and receives without demand. So if today your heart aches from holding on to something that is slipping away, pause, breathe. Remember this, the pain is not proof that you are broken, it is proof that you loved. And now the practice is not to cling harder, but to open your hand. For when you truly let go, you do not lose love, you become love itself. Lesson 4. The quiet weight of attachment. Learning to release with kindness. If you look closely at the sorrows that burden the human heart, you'll often find a common thread woven through them. It is not simply the loss of what happened, but the tight grip on what we wished would have happened. This unseen grasping, this refusal to release, is what turns pain into prolonged suffering. The Buddha, with gentle clarity, revealed this truth more than 2,500 years ago. Suffering arises from attachment, from clinging to what cannot remain. We cling to people, believing their presence is permanent. We cling to roles, hoping they will always define us. We cling to outcomes, dreams, identities, and images of who we think we must be. Yet everything the Buddha saw was marked by impermanence. To cling to what must change is like trying to hold the river still with your hands. And yet, we do cling. Not because we are weak or foolish, but because we crave safety in a world that never stops moving. We long for control, for certainty, for permanence. We hope that if we hold tightly enough, what we love will never slip away. But when change arrives, as it always does, the hands that clench begin to ache. That ache is sorrow. It's important to understand. Buddhism does not tell us to stop loving. It does not ask us to withdraw into coldness or indifference. Instead, it invites us to love fully without clinging, to experience life deeply without trying to cage it. This is not detachment in the sense of distance, it is freedom in the sense of openness. It is the difference between holding a flower gently and crushing it in our grip. Consider another image. Imagine holding water in a tightly closed fist. The harder you squeeze, the faster it escapes through your fingers. But if you open your palm, the water can rest there peacefully, even if only for a time. Letting go does not mean you never cared. It means you stop causing yourself pain by fighting what was always meant to pass. The path of letting go must be gentle. It is not about tearing attachments from the heart with force, but about loosening the knots with patience and compassion. Sometimes this looks like sitting with your grief without rushing it away. Sometimes it means allowing yourself to cry for what has ended, not as a sign of weakness, but as an act of honesty. To let go is not to reject love, but to honor it in its natural cycle. We often think peace will arrive when we finally get what we want, but perhaps peace begins when we stop demanding life to obey our wants. Imagine whispering to yourself, "This was beautiful, and now it has changed." In that soft acknowledgement, the heart begins to rest. Letting go is not a single decision. It is a living practice. Moment by moment, breath by breath, we notice the ways our minds cling to stories, to expectations, to fears of what might be lost. And with each noticing, we invite release. Slowly, the heart becomes lighter. Slowly, space opens. Inside of us, a space wide enough for peace to grow. Lesson 5. The present is not a passing second. It is a living refuge. There is a subtle thief that robs us of life more often than any disaster ever could. It does not take our money, our health, or even our time. Instead, it steals the one thing that makes life worth living: our presence. This thief lives in our own minds. It pulls us backward into memories we cannot change, replaying mistakes, regrets, and conversations long gone. Or it casts us forward into futures we cannot predict, rehearsing fears, imagining disasters, craving things that may never come. We drift endlessly between yesterday and tomorrow, but rarely taste the richness of now. When sadness weighs heavily, notice how the mind behaves. It clings to old wounds, telling the story again and again. Or it fast forwards into what-ifs, whispering fears of things that may never happen. In both cases, the present moment is ignored, yet the present is the only place where healing can take root. The Buddha called this practice sati mindfulness, the art of returning, again and again, to the simplicity of this breath, this body, this moment. He taught that peace is not a distant prize to be earned, but a doorway always standing open before us. It is here, waiting, in the rhythm of your inhale and exhale, in the beating of your heart. When grief, anxiety, or loneliness floods in, the temptation is to escape, to run into distractions, noise, or numbness. But the Dharma offers another path, to pause, to come home to the body, to allow yourself to be fully here, even if here feels heavy. At first, this presence may not feel like peace. It may feel raw, uncomfortable, even restless. Yet if you stay, if you breathe and observe without judgment, something begins to soften. The suffering doesn't vanish, but your relationship to it changes. You stop making it into a story of identity. I am broken. I am lost. Instead, you see it for what it truly is, a wave rising and falling in the ocean of awareness. Presence is not about pleasure. It is about truth. Even if the truth in this moment is painful, it is still liberating because it frees you from the chains of illusion. The mind's stories are shadows. The present is the light. Imagine walking through a forest. At first, you rush, your mind buzzing with plans and memories. But then you notice the crunch of leaves underfoot, the sound of a bird calling, the cool breeze on your skin. Suddenly, the forest is alive, not because it just came alive, but because you finally arrived to meet it. This is the power of presence. It transforms ordinary moments into sacred ones. Drinking water, feeling its coolness on your tongue, watching the sun tilt through your window, listening to the rhythm of your breath like a gentle drumbeat reminding you, you are alive, you are here. This is enough. Returning to the present is not about escaping life's storms, but about finding the still point within them, like the hub of a wheel that remains steady even. As the rim spins wildly, the present is your center. From here, you can face whatever comes without being swept away. When you feel overwhelmed, try this. Pause. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the rise and fall of your breath. Notice the sensation of your feet pressing against the ground. Hear the sounds around you, not as distractions, but as reminders that life is unfolding right here. Your problems may not disappear in that instant, but something inside you shifts. You realize that you don't need to solve the entire future to find peace. You don't need to rewrite the past to find rest. You only need to learn how to be here. Over time, this practice becomes your sanctuary. Wherever you go, whatever happens, you carry a refuge within you. A place where the mind settles, where the heart opens, where the soul breathes freely. This sanctuary is never farther than your next breath. So when your mind races, when your emotions swirl, when you feel unmoored, remember this: you are not required to run anywhere to find peace. You are already standing in the only place peace has ever lived, the present moment. And when you return here, again and again, you discover the most radical truth of all. Right now, in this single breath, you are not broken. You are not behind. You are not incomplete. You are alive. And that in itself is enough. Lesson 6. You are not broken. You are becoming awake. There are moments in life when it feels as though the ground beneath you have cracked. Everyone around you seems to carry on as usual, laughing, working, living, while inside you, something fragile shatters. You lie awake at night, body weary but thoughts restless, asking questions that echo with no reply. Why do I feel this way? What is wrong with me? Why can't I just be okay? And in the silence, darker whispers arise. Maybe I am broken. Maybe I can't be fixed. Maybe something in me is beyond repair. But Buddhism looks at these moments differently. It does not see a broken soul. It sees a human being standing on the threshold of transformation. It sees someone beginning to shed layers that no longer serve, someone whose spirit is preparing for a deeper birth. The lotus flower, that timeless Buddhist symbol, is never born from perfect waters. It rises out of the muck, the shadowed depths, the thickest mud. Its beauty is not despite the mud, it is because of it. The same is true for you. When you are in your darkest season, when everything feels raw and messy, it does not mean you are lost. It means you are being planted in the very soil that will allow you to rise. Your tears are not signs of weakness. They are rivers washing away what your heart no longer needs. Your loneliness is not punishment. It is silence making space for your own presence to return. Your fatigue, your sorrow, your ache, they are not defects. They are signals that something old is falling away so something more authentic can emerge. But the world doesn't often tell this story. It teaches that we must always look polished, always smile, always appear strong. Anything else is seen as failure. Yet this is an illusion. No tree grows straight without first bending in the storm. No clay becomes a vessel without first being pressed, shaped, and fired. And no soul awakens without walking through the fire of its own undoing. The Buddha spoke of dukkha, the satisfactoriness of life. At first, this may sound heavy, but it is profoundly freeing. It means that pain is not proof of personal failure. It is the universal human path. It is not the end, it is the beginning of wisdom. Even the Buddha himself walked through despair. He abandoned wealth, wandered barefoot, starved his body, faced temptation, fear, and doubt. Through his suffering, he discovered a truth that would echo across centuries. Pain, when embraced with awareness, can be transformed into compassion. Loss can be the ground of love. Suffering can be the soil where wisdom blooms. So if you are hurting now, if you feel like your life is unraveling, consider a different possibility. What if this unraveling is not collapse but unfolding? What if what frightens you is not your ending but your beginning? Think of a seed buried in the earth. In the darkness it cracks open. If you judged only the cracking, you'd call it destruction. But in truth, that breaking is the very condition for life to emerge. Perhaps what feels broken in you right now is not breaking down, but breaking open. There is a story told of a pot that carried water daily. Because of a crack in its side, it leaked along the path. Ashamed, it thought itself useless. But one day, its owner said, "Look at the trail we walk. Do you see the wildflowers blooming along one side? They grew from the water you thought you wasted. You were never useless. You were creating beauty all along. You too may feel cracked, incomplete, leaking strength, but you cannot yet see the flowers that are blooming from your struggle. You do not yet know the lives you will touch because you dared to walk through your darkness instead of running from it." Buddhism does not ask you to plaster over your wounds with forced positivity. It asks you to sit with them, to see your sadness not as a mistake, but as a messenger, to look at your shame not as a curse, but as a part of you longing to be seen and released, to hold even your despair with gentleness, whispering, "Even this belongs." Everything you feel has its place. Everything you endure has meaning. You are not here to be flawless. You are here to be real. And being real sometimes means breaking open, not to collapse, but to awaken. You are not defective. You are awakening. Awakening to the truth that your worth was never tied to your performance, your image, or your status. Awakening to the discovery that peace is not given by the world, but found in your own breath. Awakening to the realization that strength is not the absence of pain, but the ability to walk with it until it transforms. One day, you will look back on these nights, the restless ones, the tearful ones, the nights that felt endless, and you will not see failure. You will see initiation. You will see that this was the threshold where you began to let go of who you thought you had to be and stepped into who you truly are. A soul that did not crumble, but deepened. A heart that did not close, but opened. A being who was not destroyed by sorrow, but reshaped by it into clarity, compassion, and a peace that cannot be stolen. So when you feel yourself unraveling, breathe. Trust that unraveling is part of weaving. Trust that the night does not mean the sun is gone, only that it is gathering its light to rise again. Trust that this moment, heavy as it feels, is not your end. It is the tender beginning of your awakening. And awakening will lead you home to a life rooted in truth, alive with presence, and free in ways you never thought possible. This inner love does not erase the desire for connection with others. We are human, and we are meant to love and be loved. But when you discover your own wellspring, the nature of your relationships changes. You no longer cling from emptiness. You no longer beg others to complete you. Instead, you meet them as someone already whole. And in that wholeness, true intimacy is possible, not built on desperation, but on presence, trust, and honesty. Think of it this way. The deepest wound many of us carry is not rejection from others, but rejection of ourselves. The subtle voice that whispers, "I'm not good enough." It hides in how we look in the mirror, how we react to failure, how we shrink from love. Buddhism does not tell you to fight this voice with aggression. It teaches you to meet it with compassion, to hear it, to see it, and to respond with kindness. I know your pain, but I choose to love myself anyway. This is where the healing begins. Not in chasing a perfect partner, not in accumulating praise, but in cultivating a love so rooted in your own heart that no external storm can uproot it. And remember, love is not just a feeling. Feelings rise and fall like waves. True love is a practice, a decision you return to again and again. Sometimes it is soft and gentle, like placing your hand on your heart. Other times it is fierce, like setting a boundary that protects your well-being. But always, it begins with treating yourself with the same reverence you long to give to others. If you are in sorrow right now, aching for love, pause. Close your eyes. Light a candle if you wish. Imagine your chest as a temple, and inside it a flame that has never gone out, perhaps small, perhaps dim, but still alive. With each breath, feed that flame with the words, "May I be safe, may I be peaceful, may I live with ease." Repeat them not as a performance, but as a remembrance. Do this often, and slowly the world begins to feel different. Not because people change, but because you do. Loneliness becomes less heavy. Sadness becomes less suffocating. Because you know in your bones that even if the world turns away, you are not abandoned. You are loved not by an audience, not by another, but by the awakened self within you. So when the night feels endless and the search for love feels hopeless, return to yourself. Sit in your own company. Feel your breath, your heartbeat, your aliveness. Light the candle in your inner temple and remember, love is not something you must hunt for. It is not outside, running away from you. It is within, waiting patiently to be remembered. You are not waiting to be loved. You are the love that has been waiting. Lesson 8. You do not have to flee from pain. You must learn to sit beside it. There are moments when suffering does not come like a passing shadow, but like a long visitor who moves in uninvited. It does not knock politely. It enters, sits heavily in the room of your heart, and makes itself at home. And no matter how much you push it away with noise, distraction, or denial, you realize it is still there, waiting in the silence. Our first instinct is always resistance. We drown ourselves in busyness, in endless scrolling, in pretending that everything is fine. We plaster smiles across aching faces. We run faster, hoping that if we keep moving, pain will not catch us. Yet deep down we know, pain is not behind us. It walks with us, patient, waiting for us to stop running. The world has taught us to fear discomfort. From childhood we hear, "Don't cry, cheer up. Don't be angry, calm down. Don't grieve, distract yourself." These commands train us not to feel, but to flee. And over time, we start to believe that sadness is a defect, that grief is shameful, that pain itself is proof that something is wrong with us. But Buddhist wisdom tells another story. It says, pain is not a punishment. It is not evidence of failure. It is part of being human. And more than that, it is a doorway. Not a wall that ends your journey, but a gate that opens to truth, to compassion, to awakening. The Buddha himself did not escape pain to find enlightenment. He walked into it leaving behind comfort, choosing hunger, solitude, and uncertainty. He faced his shadows directly, and in that stillness he realized, suffering was not the enemy. The true enemy was the mind's resistance to it. So the practice is not to escape pain, but to learn how to sit with it, to sit the way you would with a frightened child, not to scold, not to rush, but to hold. Place your hand on your heart and whisper inwardly, "I will not abandon you." At first, this feels unbearable. But something shifts when you stop fighting. Pain that is acknowledged begins to soften, like ice touched by the sun. It reveals its hidden layers. Anger often hides a broken boundary. Grief is proof of deep love. Fear exposes what we most long to protect. Even numbness carries a message. A part of us is so overwhelmed that it seeks refuge in stillness. Pain is not a villain. It is a messenger. And all it asks is to be seen. But to see does not mean to drown. Mindfulness is the art of being with your pain without becoming it. Like standing beside a fire, you feel its heat, you watch its flames, but you do not leap in. Awareness allows you to notice pain as experience, not as identity. This is sadness arising. This is grief moving through me. Not I am sadness, not I am grief. In this way, you discover the truth the Buddha spoke. Pain comes, pain stays, pain passes. You remain. You are not the fire. You are the space in which the fire burns. There is a story in the old texts of a grieving mother who begged the Buddha to revive her child. With compassion, he told her, "Bring me mustard seeds from a home untouched by death, and I will help you." She went door to door, but in every home someone had been lost. She returned empty-handed, but her heart awakened. She saw that grief was not her personal curse. It was the thread woven through every human life. This story reminds us, when we sit with pain, we see that it connects us. Our suffering is not unique. It is human, shared, universal. To meet your sorrow is to meet the sorrow of countless others, past and present. And in that recognition, compassion begins to bloom. The courage to sit with pain is not forged in a single day. It is built breath by breath. Each time you resist the urge to numb, you strengthen it. Each time you allow yourself to weep freely, you strengthen it. Each time you feel the ache without judgment, you strengthen it. Slowly, pain loses its power to terrify. It becomes something you can carry with gentleness, something that deepens rather than destroys you. There is a Zen teaching. Your tears are the rain that waters the seeds of awakening. Your sleepless nights, your trembling hands, your silent cries, they are not meaningless. They are the very soil in which your future clarity grows. So if your chest is heavy right now, if your eyes are tired, if your spirit feels lost, pause. Do not rush to fix yourself. Do not scold yourself for hurting. Sit. Place your hand upon your chest and whisper, "It is okay to feel. It is okay to hurt. I will not abandon myself." Pain is not asking you to conquer it. It is asking you to listen. And when you listen, you will find that beneath the ache is strength. Beneath the sorrow is tenderness. Beneath the suffering is a quiet presence that was never broken. This presence is your Buddha nature, vast, unshaken, eternal. You are not here to escape pain. You are here to be transformed by it, to let it carve you into depth, to let it open you into compassion, to let it remind you of the unshakable peace already waiting within. So hold your pain like a candle in the darkness. Feel its light and its heat. And remember, when you stop running, when you choose to stay, the candle does not burn you. It illuminates the path. And that path, walked with courage and tenderness, leads not to despair, but to freedom. 9. Your thoughts are not always the truth. Inside each of us, there is a voice that never seems to rest. It speaks constantly, like an inner commentator, judging, reminding, comparing, and predicting. Sometimes it comforts us, but more often, it unsettles us. It whispers doubts when we take a step forward, replays our regrets when we try to sleep, and interrupts our joy with warnings that it won't last. This voice feels so familiar that we mistake it for truth. Yet Buddhism reminds us of a liberating reality. Not every thought is true, and not every thought deserves your trust. The mind, as powerful and creative as it is, can also be a master of illusion. It borrows stories from the past, colored by old wounds and conditioning. It projects fears into the future, replaying possible tragedies that may never happen. It interprets sadness as weakness, mistakes as proof of failure, and doubt as certainty of doom. Left unchecked, this restless mind becomes like a monkey leaping wildly from branch to branch, rarely pausing, rarely still. But you are not this restless voice. You are not every judgment or fear it whispers. Buddhism teaches, you are the awareness that hears the voice. You are the sky in which thoughts rise and fall like passing clouds. You are the vast ocean that holds waves of doubt and hope, anger and calm, without being destroyed by any of them. In mindfulness meditation, this becomes clear. You sit quietly and thoughts appear. This is pointless. You notice it. You don't argue. You don't push it away. You simply see it and let it pass. Another arises, you'll never heal. Again, you observe, and it too fades. Slowly, you begin to realize, thoughts are not solid. They are not facts. They are events in consciousness, temporary, conditioned, impermanent. This realization changes everything. Because when you stop automatically believing your thoughts, you create space. Space between what the mind says and how you respond. Space between fear and reaction, between criticism and shame. And in that space, you discover freedom, the freedom to respond with compassion, with wisdom, instead of blindly obeying the voice of habit. It's important to know that even negative thoughts are not trying to harm you. They are often misguided attempts of the mind to keep you safe. They replay old fears because the mind doesn't yet know how to rest. But the stories it tells come from outdated memories, from a self that no longer exists. They are echoes, not truths. This is why mindfulness is so essential, not just as practice, but as a way of life. It teaches you to observe your thoughts instead of becoming them. To shift from, I am afraid to, there is fear. From, I am unworthy to there is judgment. From, I am angry to there is anger. That simple shift reveals a powerful truth. You are not your thoughts, you are the witness of your thoughts. And when you no longer cling to them as identity, you reclaim your power. You stop being a prisoner of your mind. You stop mistaking clouds for the sky. If you wonder, if I cannot trust my thoughts, what can I trust? Trust your breath. Trust your direct experience in this moment. Trust the stillness beneath the noise, the awareness that has always been there. That is your anchor, your refuge. Buddhist psychology teaches that thoughts, when left untrained, create delusion and suffering. But when disciplined through awareness, they become tools for insight. Your mind is not the enemy. It is like fire, it can burn or it can warm, depending on how you hold it. So when a painful thought arises, don't push it away and don't blindly believe it. Meet it as a guest. Ask gently, where did you come from? Are you true? Are you helpful? And then decide whether to let it pass. This is the art of mental hygiene, not forcing the mind into silence, but listening with clarity and kindness until its noise loses power. In time, the inner critic softens. The looping stories lose their grip. Thoughts come and go, but you no longer drown in them. You see them for what they are, passing clouds. And when the storm returns, as storms always do, you don't panic. You breathe, you observe, you return to stillness. There is a Zen story of a student who told his master, "My mind is always racing. I can't stop the thoughts." The master replied, "Let them race, just don't chase them. Thoughts can fly, but you need not follow." That is the essence of freedom, to let the mind do what it does, without becoming its captive. So if today your mind is cruel or restless, if it fills you with doubt or darkness, pause. Don't try to outthink it. Don't try to fight it. Just breathe. Feel your body. Feel the ground beneath you. Feel the aliveness in your hands. Remember, thoughts may scream otherwise, but they are not truth. They are only echoes. They will pass. Even if your mind tells you, you will always feel this way, remember, this too is a thought. It is not eternal. Everything changes. No thought lasts forever. You are not broken for having dark thoughts. You are human. The path is not about stopping thought. It is about waking up from the trance of believing them. The practice is simple. Breathe, observe, let go. And as you return again and again to this still awareness, you discover the home beneath the noise. That home is your true nature. That stillness is your freedom. And it has never been harmed by a single thought. So the next time your mind tells you a painful story, smile softly and remember, you are not the story. You are the awareness that hears it. You are the sky, vast and free, and every thought is just another cloud passing through. 10. You don't need to become someone else. Return to who you truly are. From the very first breath we take, the world begins to whisper instructions into our ears. Some are spoken loudly. Be strong. Don't cry. Don't fail. Make us proud. Others are quieter, carried in glances, in silence, in unspoken expectations that settle into our skin like invisible weights. Without realizing it, we start shaping ourselves according to these messages. We perform. We adapt. We chase standards that forever shift like the horizon, always just out of reach. And piece by piece, we begin to lose sight of our own truth. We wear masks because we fear rejection. We build walls because vulnerability feels unsafe. We fold ourselves into boxes we were never meant to fit in. And slowly, painfully, we begin to forget who we really are. We forget the purity of childhood joy, the curiosity that once bloomed without reason, the lightness that didn't need achievement to shine. We forget that our worth was never meant to be proven. It was always rooted in presence, in awareness, in simply being. To belong, we trade authenticity. To feel accepted, we hide truth. But the cost is heavy, because when you spend your life trying to become someone else, you drift further away from the only person who can bring you peace yourself. Buddhism offers another path. It does not tell you to polish yourself until you are perfect. It does not demand that you reinvent yourself into some distant, enlightened figure. Instead, it whispers, return. Return to the self that existed before the world told you who you should be. Return to the quiet witness that has always been here, waiting beneath the noise. Return to the awareness untouched by judgment, comparison, or fear. This self is not something you must invent. It is something you must remember. The Buddha never urged us to become someone different. His teachings were about peeling away illusions, awakening to the truth that was always here. Enlightenment is not self-improvement, it is self-remembrance. It is the recognition that you were never broken, never lacking, never too much or not enough. The chase to become better often hides a seed of self-rejection. We treat our present self as flawed, as something to fix. And that belief plants suffering, because peace is always seen as somewhere else in the next transformation, the next level, the next version of you. But what if that entire chase is an illusion? What if you are not here to become more, but to release what is not you? What if the work is not to build yourself up endlessly, but to lay down the masks, the armor, the false identities you've carried for years? This letting go is not easy. To remove the masks requires courage. To welcome back the abandoned parts of yourself requires tenderness. To sit with the pieces of you that don't look worthy by the world's standards requires compassion. Yet this is the path, not forward into perfection, but inward into presence. In meditation, you taste this truth. At first, the mind fights it, throws judgments, regrets, plans, criticisms. But as you breathe, as you sit, as you soften, a subtle shift appears. Beneath the noise, you glimpse something steady, a spacious stillness, a sense of home. That is your original self. That is the you who has never been ashamed, never been broken, never needed external approval to be whole. And the more you connect with it, the more you trust it. You begin to see that you do not need armor in every room. You do not need to shrink to make others comfortable. You do not need to compare your pace to someone else's story. Your growth is sacred, even if invisible. Your healing is real, even if incomplete. And your being is enough, even if unrecognized. Buddhist teachings call this Buddha nature, the innate potential within every living being to awaken. It is not something to be earned. It is your birthright. It is who you already are beneath conditioning. And as you stop chasing and start being, this truth slowly reveals itself. You may notice moments of joy without cause. Compassion may arise where anger once lived. You may sit with sadness not as a curse, but as a teacher. These are not signs of becoming someone new. They are glimpses of the self you have always been. Yes, the world will still try to convince you otherwise. It will demand you strive harder, be more, prove your worth. But as your practice deepens, you will meet those voices with a quiet smile and whisper, "No, thank you. I already know who I am." There is a Zen saying that whispers a truth too often forgotten. When the flower blooms, the bees come uninvited. Its meaning is simple yet profound. When you stop chasing and start being, when you allow your true nature to shine quietly, without effort or disguise, the right people, the right experiences, and the right peace naturally find their way to you. You don't force them. You don't perform for them. You simply bloom. And in that authenticity, life responds. If you are weary from pretending, exhausted from performing, and tired of endlessly striving for some image of perfection, let this be your gentle invitation. Come home. Come home to your breath. Come home to your body. Come home to the silence within you that has been patiently waiting. This silence asks nothing of you. It does not judge you. It simply holds you as you are. Sit with it. Let it cradle the parts of yourself you've hidden away. Let it remind you that you are not a problem to be solved. You are a presence to be lived. This does not mean you stop growing. Growth is natural, like the tree that stretches upward each spring. But true growth does not come from lack. It comes from love. It is not driven by the belief that you are broken. It is nurtured by the knowing that you are already whole. The difference is everything. One path leaves you burned out, always chasing. The other path leaves you rooted, grateful, and at peace. There is nothing more powerful than a person anchored in their own being. Someone who doesn't need to shout their worth. Someone who walks softly, yet fills a room with presence. Someone who no longer bends to fit the expectations of the world, but instead lives from the inside out. That person already lives within you. You don't need to keep running. You don't need to keep waiting for the perfect moment. The moment is here. The permission is yours. The homecoming has already begun. So pause, breathe, slow down, let go. You are not behind. You are not missing anything. You are not some broken version of a better person. You are a sacred unfolding. You are a quiet miracle happening in the midst of ordinary life. You are truth awakening inside a world that has forgotten how to see clearly. And the path forward, if it is to be peaceful, must begin with this. You don't need to become anyone else. You only need to remember who you already are. True healing is born not from force, but from allowing. In a culture obsessed with speed and achievement, this may feel radical. We are taught to push through pain, to get over it, to solve problems quickly, to hide our struggles so no one feels uncomfortable. Vulnerability is seen as weakness, and emotions as inconveniences to be managed. But beneath all this noise, Buddhist wisdom reminds us of a deeper truth. Healing happens not when we demand it, but when we allow it. Healing is not a race. It is not a task to be conquered. It is not a wound you can hurry closed. It unfolds like a flower only when it feels safe, only when you stop forcing and start receiving. Meditation reflects this truth. The goal is never to erase pain or silence the mind. It is to sit, to notice, to allow. Whatever arises, sadness, anger, confusion, even emptiness you welcome with kindness. You say softly, "This too belongs." And in that radical acceptance, something shifts. The pain loosens its grip, not because you defeated it, but because you stopped fighting it. Think of your inner pain as a frightened child. If you scold the child, demand strength, or force silence, they may fall quiet, but out of fear, not healing. But if you sit beside them, hold their hand, and whisper, "It's okay, I'm here, cry if you need to," the tension begins to melt, tears flow, the body relaxes, and true healing begins. This is exactly how your heart longs to be treated, not with judgment, not with solutions, not with timelines, but with space to be confused, space to grieve, space to rest. Healing is never linear. It doesn't obey deadlines. It has its own rhythm, like the tides of the ocean. It unfolds when you create the right conditions. Trust, gentleness, presence. Trust that your body remembers how to mend. Trust that your heart, though broken, still beats with wisdom. Trust that your sadness carries seeds of awakening. Above all, trust that you do not need to be fixed before you are worthy of care. You don't have to smile to be loved. You don't have to be strong to be supported. You don't have to improve to deserve rest. These are illusions placed upon your healing. You can lay them down now. The Buddha often spoke of the middle path, neither forcing nor neglecting, but walking gently in balance. In healing, this means no longer pushing yourself toward progress with harshness, nor falling into despair. It means meeting yourself exactly where you are. You do not sit in meditation to get rid of pain. You sit to see it, to breathe with it, to hold it gently until it shifts on its own. And in that sacred meeting, transformation begins not through force, but through presence. Not through demand, but through allowing. Sometimes, the most healing thing you can do is nothing at all, not striving, not fixing, not rushing, just resting, just breathing, just being. To lie quietly and feel the rise and fall of your chest. To sit beneath a tree and let sunlight warm your skin. To drink tea slowly, without a destination. To cry without needing to explain yourself. To let the world spin on while you pause for a while. This kind of stillness may appear ordinary, but it carries profound medicine. It tells your nervous system, you are safe. It whispers to your mind, there is nothing to fix right now. And it assures your heart, I will not leave you. When those truths begin to sink into your being, everything softens. The body opens, the mind loosens, the heart trusts again. Allowing does not mean giving up. It does not mean surrendering to endless suffering. It means making space sacred space where transformation can naturally unfold. Think of soil that waits patiently for a seed to sprout, or the sky that holds every passing cloud without resistance. This is the ground of true healing. It doesn't roar like thunder. It reveals itself quietly, in the moment you realize you are breathing easier, or when laughter slips out without effort, or when a memory that once wounded you no longer has sharp edges. There is a story from the Buddhist tradition of a seeker who tried to conquer his suffering with extreme austerity. He starved himself, slept on the bare ground, denied every comfort, yet his suffering clung to him. One day, weary and near collapse, he sat beneath a tree and simply breathed. No goal, no striving, just the breath, just being. And in that gentle surrender, insight dawned. Peace was never something to be forced. It was always within, waiting. That seeker was Siddhartha Gautama. That moment was the beginning of his enlightenment. His realization is our reminder. You do not need to punish yourself for feeling pain. You do not need to banish your emotions. You only need to sit beneath the tree of your own presence and breathe. Be with yourself, not with shame, not with guilt, not with hurry. And from that allowing, healing arises. Not because you commanded it, but because you created the conditions for it to bloom. So when you feel broken, stuck, or lost, remember, you are not failing. You are being called to slow down, to listen, to rest in the embrace of your own being. The world may try to rush you, may whisper, "Aren't you over this yet?" But you can answer gently, "Healing is not a race, it is a remembering, and I am allowing it, one breath at a time." That single breath, that simple pause, is enough. It is the beginning of the return to wholeness, not through effort, but through trust. Trust that even in your most fragile state, you remain worthy of love. Trust that healing doesn't need to be loud to be real. Trust that peace is not far, it is unfolding, softly and steadily, within you. Stillness, then, is not emptiness. It is the womb of life itself. It is where everything meaningful begins. There comes a time in every life when the noise is too much, when the mind is crowded, the heart heavy, and each breath feels like pushing against invisible weight. We fill our days with constant motion, our ears with sound, our minds with endless streams of information, believing activity equals meaning. Yet under all this movement, many of us feel hollow, untethered, disconnected. Something essential is missing, though we cannot name it. Instead of slowing down to discover it, we often speed up, chasing harder, consuming more, running faster. But the truth is, what we long for is not out there. It has always been here, hidden not in motion, but in stillness. In Buddhism, stillness is not an afterthought. It is the foundation, the soil in which wisdom takes root, the ground from which compassion grows. And yet, in a world that glorifies urgency and rewards noise, stillness is misunderstood. People hear the word and think it means passivity, laziness, emptiness. But true stillness is none of these. Stillness is not the absence of life, it is the fullness of awareness. It is not lifeless, it is the quiet source from which the most meaningful movements arise. To the untrained mind, stillness can feel unbearable. Sit in silence, and the distractions vanish. Suddenly, the thoughts you've been avoiding come rushing in. The feelings you've numbed begin to stir. The mind protests. This is boring. This is useless. You're wasting time. But this is the very gift of stillness. It strips away illusions, masks, and false urgency. It reveals what is truly there, not to shame you, but to invite you into honesty, to give you the space to see yourself clearly. And from that clarity, life begins anew. When we choose to remain in stillness, not running, not distracting ourselves, not reaching for the next thing, we begin to touch something most of us have forgotten: the sheer power of simply being, not being productive, not being impressive, just being. This humble presence is not weak, it is transformative. For in stillness, the mind softens, the heart begins to mend, and a deeper truth emerges. Here, we are no longer performers on the stage of expectation. We are no longer chasing approval. We are simply allowing life to flow through us as it is. And in that allowing, something sacred is revealed, the essence of who we truly are. Meditation is the practice of entering this space. We do not sit to force the mind into silence, but to let the noise drift by like passing clouds. Thoughts arise, we notice. Feelings come, we allow. We neither chase nor escape. Slowly, the waves settle, and beneath the surface chatter, a deeper current appears. The calm beneath the chaos, the silence beneath the stories, the being beneath all becoming. From here, life looks different. We are no longer tugged around by every reaction. We no longer run after things that do not nourish us. We no longer fear what we cannot control. Stillness teaches us that peace is not found by adding more to life, but by showing up fully for what is already here. A sip of tea, the sound of wind, the weight of your body resting on the earth. These are not small things. They are the doorways into presence, and presence is the only place peace ever lives. One of Buddhism's most profound teachings is that this very moment is enough, not as a poetic idea, but as a living truth. When we are still, we begin to feel this directly. We realize we don't need to rush. We don't need to prove ourselves. We don't need to earn worthiness. For what we are in our deepest essence is already whole, already complete, already free. This realization doesn't arrive with fireworks. It comes quietly between breaths, in moments of soft release, when we stop searching and start listening. When we stop needing life to be different and begin noticing the miracle of what already is. Stillness, then, is not emptiness. It is fullness, full of awareness, full of presence, full of life itself. And the more we practice resting here, the more it becomes our natural home, a place we return to when storms of confusion, sadness, or stress arise. It is the unshakable refuge within. Zen tradition holds a story of a man who once asked a monk, "What is the essence of your practice?" The monk replied, "Sitting quietly, doing nothing." The man scoffed, "That sounds like laziness." The monk smiled gently and said, "When I sit, spring comes and the grass grows by itself." This simple reply holds a world of wisdom. Stillness is not inactivity, it is trust. Trust that healing comes when the soil of the soul is ready. Trust that clarity blooms when the mind is quiet enough to see. Trust that growth, like grass, unfolds naturally when the right conditions are present. And those conditions begin with stillness. So if your life feels chaotic, if your mind is noisy, if your heart feels tangled, this is your invitation not to push harder, not to escape, but to pause, to sit, to feel your breath, to notice the sounds around you, to return to the living pulse of this moment. For here, you will touch something that no achievement, no possession, no external validation can give or take away: the peace of being. Stillness is not a one-time refuge. It is a path, a practice, a lifelong remembering. Yes, the mind will resist. Yes, the ego will protest. Yes, the world will call you back into noise. But each breath you take in stillness is a return to your true home. You reclaim your presence. You reclaim your power. You reclaim your right to rest in the truth of who you are. And who you are is not merely a body passing through time. You are awareness itself, the space in which every thought arises and dissolves, the witness who remains untouched by change. Stillness is the gateway to this truth. It is not escape, it is return. When the world feels too heavy, when your chest aches with thoughts you cannot quiet, the natural urge is to reach, to distract, to run. But the Dharma whispers another path. Stop. Breathe. Rest in the silence. Even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it feels like unfamiliar ground, stay with it. The mind may chatter, the heart may still ache, but beneath it all, something softer begins to stir. A peace not tied to circumstances, but to presence itself. This is the true gift of stillness. It is not escape, but embrace. Not emptiness, but the doorway into awareness. A doorway into healing. A doorway into truth. You don't need to add more to yourself. You don't need to achieve or perform. You only need to sit, to breathe, to simply be. And in that being, you rediscover what your soul has always known. Stillness is not the absence of life, it is the beginning of everything. Yet there is another teaching woven into this stillness, the truth about strength. From childhood, most of us are taught that strength means armor. Hide your tears, toughen your skin, speak sharply, win battles, never show weakness. Layer by layer, we bury our tenderness and mistake hardness for survival. But in the gentle light of Buddhism, strength is seen differently. True strength does not come from force, but from softness. Not from conquering or controlling, but from remaining open in a world that demands you close. Gentleness is not weakness, it is the refinement of power. In Buddhism, one of the greatest symbols of strength is not the sword, not the lion, but the lotus, a fragile flower that rises from mud and blossoms in light, not by pushing, not by fighting, but by trusting. The lotus does not shout, it does not defend, it opens, and in its opening, it transforms everything around it. This is the power of gentle strength. When suffering comes, our instinct is to tighten, to harden, to protect. But this hardening, though natural, becomes a prison. It walls us off from others, and more painfully, from ourselves. Gentleness invites us to do the opposite, to soften, to breathe, to stay open, even when it hurts. This is not easy. It requires immense courage to choose compassion instead of anger, listening instead of judgment, forgiveness instead of blame. But each time you choose gentleness, you deepen not in status or control, but in presence, authenticity, and freedom. Think of water. It is soft, it yields, it adapts to every shape, and yet it wears down stone. It nourishes life without needing to declare its power. Its strength lies not in resistance, but in surrender. The Taoists knew this, the Buddhists knew this, and deep down, you know it too. Your gentleness is not a flaw. It is your true nature. When you meditate, you do not force the mind into silence. You simply sit with what is thoughts, emotions, sensations without judgment. In that soft witnessing, the chaos begins to settle, the wounds begin to breathe. Not because you push them away, but because you allow them to be seen. That is the quiet strength of gentleness. It makes space for truth. Many of us are so used to battling ourselves that softening feels alien. We criticize, we demand, we push. But imagine for a moment approaching your pain as a mother would approach a crying child. Not with impatience, not with anger, but with a tender presence that whispers, "I see you. I am here." That is the heart of Buddhism. Compassion is not the reward at the end of the path, it is the path itself. Lesson 11. The art of open awareness and the truth beyond thought. In Buddhist practice, there is a meditation known as open awareness. You sit quietly, you breathe, and instead of forcing your mind to cling to a single object, you allow life to be just as it is. The sounds in the distance, the rise and fall of thoughts, the shifting waves of emotion, the sensations moving through the body, all of it is welcomed. Nothing is chased, nothing is rejected. You simply witness. And in that space of deep acceptance, a profound truth begins to emerge. Awareness itself is never disturbed. Just as the wide sky remains untouched by passing storms, the stillness within you remains unshaken beneath the clouds of thought. Even when the winds of difficulty howl, the sky is still sky. This is the essence of surrender. It does not mean removing storms from life. It means releasing the demand that storms should never come. It is not about stopping the rain, but learning how to move with it, how to breathe in the fire, how to rest in silence without fear. True surrender is not forcing life to bend to your will, but learning to trust that life unfolds in its own time, in its own way. And this trust is not naive. It is born from practice, from presence, from seeing life unfold again and again, not according to your plans, but often in ways far wiser than you could have imagined. Look back at your life. The moments that shaped you most were not the ones you controlled, but the ones you surrendered to. The heartbreak that softened your heart, the failure that humbled your spirit, the delay that gave you patience, the ending that became the doorway to a beginning. Surrender does not weaken you, it clarifies you. It strips away the noise of ego and fear. It dissolves the illusion that you must carry the world alone and leaves in its place a grace, a flow, a quiet humility. You begin to trust that life is not a battle to win, but a dance to join. You realize that you do not need to grip so tightly. You can rest, you can release, you can let life hold you. Yes, surrender takes practice. The mind will resist. It will scream, "Do something. Fix this. Take control." But you do not have to obey. You can breathe. You can pause. You can ask yourself, is this struggle serving me, or is it draining me? And if you find it is the latter, you can soften even slightly. You can whisper within, it's safe to let go. Letting go does not mean abandoning care. It means caring differently. Not with fists clenched, but with open palms. Not with panic, but with presence. Not with fear, but with trust. In that shift, you discover a peace not tied to circumstances. A strength not built on force, but on alignment. So, if you are weary of carrying the unbearable load, weary of gripping everything so tightly, weary of fighting life itself, try surrender. Not as a desperate last option, but as a sacred practice. Sit with your breath. Sit with your heart. Ask yourself honestly, what am I holding too tightly? And then even just a little loosen your grip. Let the current guide you. Let this very moment be enough. Allow yourself to be held by something greater than your plans. Because in the end, surrender is not about losing. It is about finally laying down the endless war within. It is about dropping the armor, releasing the fists, and realizing that the peace you've been chasing was never out there. It was here all along, waiting in the stillness, waiting in the now, waiting in the flow. When you let go, you are not falling, you are being lifted. And here, in this surrender, another truth becomes clear. You are not your thoughts. The mind is an extraordinary tool, capable of composing music, solving complex problems, weaving dreams, and carrying wisdom. It is the mind that helps us navigate the intricate paths of life. But when left unchecked, this same mind can become a storm that never ends. One moment it exalts you with hope, and the next it drowns you in fear. In the morning, it names you a hero. By nightfall, it convinces you that you are a failure. Yet here is the truth so many forget. You are not every thought that appears. You are not the stories they weave. You are the awareness that notices them. Thoughts pass through you, but they are not you. This awakening isn't just an idea to be stored in the mind. It's a shift in your very sense of self, the moment you realize that you are not the noise, not the chaos, not the restless mind with its endless chatter. You are not the storm. You are the silent sky that allows the storm to pass. You are not the crashing waves. You are the depth of the ocean that remains calm beneath them. You are not the flickering thoughts. You are the open space through which they move. The Buddha's teachings point again and again to this truth. Suffering does not arise from what life brings us, but from the stories we weave about it. Pain comes, but it is our resistance that makes it unbearable. Loss comes, but it is our clinging that deepens the wound. The events themselves are not the prison, it is the mind's insistence that they should have been different. Freedom, then, does not come from controlling every thought or forcing the mind into silence. It comes from recognizing that the mind is not your ruler. It is a tool, a servant, an instrument. You are the awareness behind it, watching, listening, and free to let the stories pass like drifting clouds. This is mindfulness, the simple yet profound practice of watching thoughts come and go, without chasing them, without resisting them, without declaring them to be who you are. To sit and breathe, to allow the play of the mind to unfold without judgment, is to discover that stillness has always been there beneath the noise. The thoughts rise and fall, yet you remain. The stories change, yet awareness stays the same. And in that stillness, you taste peace. But most of us live caught in identification with the mind. A thought appears, I am unworthy, and we believe it. Another arises, I am alone, and we collapse into despair. The mind whispers these lines, and we mistake them for truth. We let them dictate our moods, our actions, even our destiny. And yet, they are nothing more than passing clouds. The moment you step back and observe, everything changes. You don't need to silence the storm. You only need to remember that you are not the storm. In meditation, this practice is cultivated patiently. The mind will wander, it will judge, it will plan, it will replay. And every time, you return gently to the breath. You notice the thought, you call it what it is, just thinking, and let it float away. Not with frustration, but with kindness. Not with rejection, but with compassion. Slowly, the space widens. You see the mind for what it is, sometimes wise, sometimes foolish, often repetitive, rarely original. You notice how its stories recycle when you are tired, hungry, or lonely. You notice how some voices aren't even yours, but echoes of parents, teachers, or society. You see the scars disguised as facts. I am broken. I will never change. I am not enough. And the moment you see them as stories instead of truth, their power begins to fade. They may still appear, but they no longer control you. Even the ego itself is nothing more than a thought, a fragile identity built from roles, comparisons, and labels. I am this job. I am this success. I am better than them. I am worse than them. The danger lies not in having an ego, but in believing it is your essence. The instant you recognize that even this identity is an illusion, that you are not the mask, but the witness behind it, you awaken to something deeper. You awaken to presence. And this presence does not reject life. It embraces it. It allows joy to be joy, grief to be grief, anger to be anger. It allows without clinging, without drowning. You can cry without shame, grieve without collapse. Feel anger without becoming consumed, because you now know that you are not these states, but the space in which they arise. This is what non-attachment truly means in Buddhism. It is not cold indifference, not numbing the heart, not running from life. It is the freedom to let each moment pass without gripping it with desperate hands. It is the trust to let the river flow without trying to control its current. And here lies one of the deepest realizations. The mind can be loud, turbulent, and restless, and yet you can still be at peace. The storm can rage, but the sky above it remains untouched. That sky is you. That stillness is your home. When you return to this awareness again and again, life changes. Not because the outside world suddenly bends to your will, but because your relationship with it softens. You stop taking everything so personally. You stop needing to win every battle. You stop trying to control what was never yours to control. Instead, you begin to live with a gentleness, a clarity, and a love that flows from within. This doesn't mean you will never stumble again. Thoughts will still visit with their fears and doubts. But now you have a choice. You can smile at them, breathe, and let them drift by like clouds in a vast sky. Each time you do, you grow stronger in presence. Each time you do, you loosen the chains of old stories. Each time you do, you remember your freedom. So if right now your mind feels heavy, if your thoughts are loud, if the storm refuses to quiet, close your eyes. Take a slow breath in, release it gently, and remind yourself, I am not this noise. I am the one who hears it. You are not the waves. You are the ocean. You are not the storm. You are the sky. And the sky has never feared the passing of clouds. Belonging begins here within. It is not found outside, in validation or approval. It is remembered in the silence of your own presence. It is felt when you stop running, stop abandoning yourself, and finally rest in the truth of what you are. You are already home. You always were. And in this home, there is space for every part of you, your joy, your sorrow, your questions, your silence. This home has no walls. It is made of breath, of awareness, of love. Welcome back to yourself. Lesson 12. Be like water. The art of adapting without losing yourself. Water has always been one of the greatest teachers in nature. It doesn't shout, it doesn't fight for attention, and yet quietly, it carves valleys, softens stone, and shapes entire landscapes. Its power is not in aggression, but in its ability to yield, to move, to persist without losing its essence. To live like water is to embrace the wisdom of softness. It reflects the very heart of the Buddhist path, gentle, fluid, unresisting, yet powerful beyond measure. The Buddha often pointed to this quality when he spoke of peace. Non-resistance is water's way. Non-attachment is water's flow. Strength without force, movement without fear. Water teaches us a profound truth. Life is not something to be controlled, but something to be danced with. Change is not the enemy. It is the essence of existence. Every day life shifts, bends, twists, and no matter how tightly we cling, nothing remains the same. To be like water is to flow with this truth rather than suffer in its denial. Most of our suffering comes from resistance. We resist uncertainty. We resist emotions we don't like. We resist people when they don't meet our expectations. We brace ourselves as if tension could stop the waves from rolling in. But the more we resist, the harder the waves crash. Water shows us a different way not to build walls against the storm, but to become the ocean itself. Notice how water meets obstacles. It doesn't complain. It doesn't fight. It moves around rocks, filling the space available, reshaping itself without losing its purity. Whether it flows through a narrow stream or a vast river, it remains what it always was: water. This is the invitation of Buddhism to meet life's moments without rigidity, to adapt without abandoning your essence. When you live like water, you stop reacting out of fear and begin responding with awareness. Reactivity is like thrashing in deep water. It only pulls you under. Presence is like floating. It keeps you steady, buoyant, alive. To be soft is not weakness, it is wisdom, for only what bends can survive the storm. But how do we embody this way of being? First, we must release the illusion of control. The mind clings to control as if it was safety. If I can plan enough, force enough, predict enough, then I will be secure. But control is a mirage. Life is not a rigid structure, it is a river. You cannot grasp it. You can only flow with it. True peace is born not from controlling every outcome, but from trusting yourself in every outcome. Trust that you can meet whatever comes, that even in the face of the unexpected, you will adapt. Like water, you can yield without breaking. Second, we let go of rigid identities. Much of our suffering comes from defining ourselves too tightly. I am this kind of person. That shouldn't happen to me. I don't do things like that. But life doesn't care about our fixed labels. It pushes us into growth. If you cling too tightly, you will crack under change. If you flow, you evolve. Like water, you shift form but never lose your depth. Third, we learn emotional fluidity. Emotions rise like weather. Sunshine one moment, storm the next. We suffer when we cling to joy, desperate to keep it, or when we resist sorrow, desperate to push it away. To live like water is to let emotions come and go, to feel fully without being consumed. You can feel anger without becoming it, grief without drowning in it, joy without clinging to it. That is true freedom. Water also embodies humility. It doesn't boast. Whether it flows in a gutter or a golden cup, it remains water. It doesn't demand recognition. It simply is. The lesson for us is clear. Stop chasing worth through comparison. Stop measuring yourself against where you are or who notices you. Like water, just be. That is enough. In relationships, being like water means meeting others with patience, listening without the need to dominate, flowing around differences instead of crashing against them. Water nourishes everything it touches. So can you with kindness, presence, and gentleness, even when the world grows sharp. And when life breaks you, water reminds you that no ending is ever final. It evaporates into air, returns as rain, freezes into ice, melts into streams. It disappears only to re-emerge again and again. This is resilience, to rise, to renew, to keep flowing no matter how many times life changes your form. This is the gift of water, the reminder that nothing is permanent, but you are never truly lost. You may stumble, you may fall, but like water, you are always capable of beginning again. Meditation becomes the training ground for this fluidity. As you sit, you watch the mind like a stream. Thoughts drift in, emotions ripple through, and you learn not to grasp, not to resist, but to observe. Over time, this practice teaches you how to carry that same stillness into your life. You breathe instead of bracing. You listen instead of lashing out. You adapt with grace instead of fighting change. And slowly, you discover a profound truth. Peace is not about stopping the waves. Peace is knowing how to ride them. You don't need to be unbreakable. You don't need to harden yourself like stone. You need only to be like water, soft, deep, fluid, free. So let yourself move without fear, rest without guilt, adapt without losing yourself. And may your presence ripple gently into the world, steady, quiet, and boundless. Nothing is permanent, the wisdom of embracing impermanence. Everything you touch, everything you hold, everything you dream of, all of it is passing. Every laugh, every tear, every victory, every heartbreak. Seasons shift, faces age, relationships change. Even the body you call mine is in constant motion. Nothing stays still. Nothing waits. At first, this truth feels unsettling, like trying to hold water in your hands and watching it slip away. But within this truth lies the very doorway to freedom. Buddhism calls this anicca impermanence one of the 3 marks of existence. To deny it is to suffer endlessly. To see it clearly is to awaken. From the instant we enter this world, life begins to move. We grow, we lose, we love, we heal, and in every stage, something is being reshaped. Yet the human heart clings. It whispers, "Stay like this, don't change, don't go." But life cannot be frozen. The tighter we hold, the deeper the ache. We don't suffer simply because things end. We suffer because we once believed they wouldn't. The Dharma doesn't tell us to stop feeling, to stop grieving, to stop loving. Instead, it invites us to feel with wisdom, to love with awareness, to grieve with clarity. When you see impermanence not as an enemy, but as a companion, your grip loosens. You begin to live instead of cling. When sadness weighs heavy, you remember, it will pass. When joy overflows, you also remember, this too will pass. Not to make the joy smaller, but to make it richer, to savor it like a ripe fruit that you know will soon be gone. This awareness doesn't numb you, it wakes you up. Every smile, every sunrise, every ordinary breath becomes precious. Impermanence transforms life into a miracle unfolding before your eyes. And here's the gift hidden inside. Impermanence means you are not trapped. You are not your worst day. You are not defined by old mistakes. Like clouds drifting across the sky, your emotions, your habits, your very sense of self can shift. Who you were yesterday doesn't chain you to tomorrow. The pain that feels unbearable today will soften. The fog will lift. Just as trees release their leaves, you too can release guilt, shame, false identities, and start anew. You are not a rock, you are a river. Yet this truth is double-edged. It comforts us when we suffer. This too shall pass. But it also challenges us when we cling to what we love. It asks us not to clutch even the most beautiful moments, but to kiss them as they leave. This takes courage. To love fully while knowing that love will change form. To open your heart while knowing it cannot hold forever. And yet, this courage is where true freedom is found. The paradox of life is simple. The more you try to hold on, the more you suffer. The more you let go, the more beauty you receive. Because now nothing is wasted, nothing is overlooked. Each embrace matters. Each goodbye holds weight. Each breath becomes sacred. Meditation becomes a mirror of this truth. Sit quietly, and you'll see. The breath rises and falls. Thoughts appear and dissolve. Emotions surge and fade. Even pain flickers in and out. Nothing remains. And still, beneath it all, there is something steady, the awareness watching it all unfold. That spacious, silent witness is your true nature. It does not cling. It simply sees. When you rest in that awareness, fear begins to lose its grip. You stop being haunted by yesterday. You stop fearing tomorrow. You return to the only place that is alive, this moment. And from that space, you live lighter. You forgive quicker. You love more deeply because you understand nothing is guaranteed, and that is exactly why it matters. Impermanence also reshapes grief. When someone you love leaves, whether through distance or death, your heart cries, "It shouldn't be this way." Yet somewhere within, you know it always had to be this way. All forms end. All meetings part. But love itself is not lost. It transforms. It weaves into you. It becomes part of your being. Their presence may fade, but their essence lives in the ripples of who you are now. In nature, the lesson is everywhere. Blossoms fall without protest. The tide retreats without anger. The moon waxes and wanes without resistance. Not once does the tree clutch its leaves. Not once does the river refuse to flow. The wisdom of impermanence whispers in every corner of creation. Trust the rhythm. Trust the rise and fall. Even endings carry beginnings. When you embrace this truth, you become resilient. You stop breaking when life shifts beneath you. You bend like bamboo, swaying with storms, but never uprooted. You trust your capacity to begin again, no matter how many times life changes shape. You remember you are not the storm, not the circumstance, but the sky that holds it all. So ask yourself, do I really want to carry this resentment one more day? Do I want to miss today's sunrise because I'm lost in yesterday's shadows? Do I want to waste this breath clinging to what I cannot keep? Impermanence doesn't steal life's meaning, it gives it. It reminds us to hold everything gently, to weep, yes, but not to harden, to rejoice, yes, but not to cling, to love fully, even though it will change, because in the end, nothing is permanent, and that is not a curse. It is a blessing. It means every moment is alive. Every goodbye is sacred. Every beginning is waiting, just beyond the ending. And when you soften into this truth, life is no longer something to fear. It becomes something to celebrate. Conclusion: life is always moving, changing, shifting, teaching. Nothing is permanent, and that is its greatest gift. When you stop fighting the flow, you begin to live fully. You begin to love deeply. You begin to find peace in places you once resisted. So let this truth guide you. Don't wait for tomorrow to honor what is here today. Don't hold back your kindness, your forgiveness, your gratitude, because every breath, every smile, every connection is already on its way to becoming memory. If this teaching has touched your heart, carry it with you and share it with someone who might need the reminder that nothing is forever, and that is why everything is so precious. If you found wisdom here, I invite you to subscribe and join this community walking the path of Buddhist philosophy together. Let's grow, learn, and awaken one moment at a time.